Hello students, welcome to Baji Rao IAS Academy. So till yesterday we have discussed UPSC 2023 General Studies question papers, right? So in this session we will discuss the ethics question paper. We will discuss all the theory questions and then we will also try and understand how UPSC has asked case studies in the year 2023. Okay, so now first we will try and understand what are the questions which are given in the theory part of ethics question paper. So the first question which the UPSC has asked is related to corporate governance. Okay, so in this corporate governance, UPSC has specifically asked about areas like moral integrity and also professional efficiency. See, professional efficiency in corporate governance is actually forms the core or the crux. So therefore, the professional efficiency would further enhance the overall functioning and effectiveness and also work culture in the corporate governance. So therefore, even in India, so there has been an increasing, a fast-paced growth of corporate sector. So in this context, it is very important to understand the concepts like moral integrity and professional efficiency in the specific context of corporate governance. Now, the question has asked us to illustrate this with the suitable examples. When you are writing points justifying your answer, you should also give examples. Now, without examples, the answer will not be completed. So, therefore, at least in every point, you should try to give at least one example. Now, if you understand, first define what exactly the corporate governance is in the introduction itself. Okay, so first define the corporate governance, and after defining corporate governance, what you need to do, you should also give a one line definition of moral integrity. One line definition of moral integrity, and then you should also define what exactly the professional efficiency in the corporate governance. So this is how you have to give a brief introduction of all these areas. So therefore it will help you make a smooth transition into the body part of the answer. Now, if you properly understand what exactly corporate governance is, it refers to the framework of principles, practices, and regulations. Now, in every in every corporate company, there are a set of principles and set of practices which actually govern the practices of such a corporate working. Okay, so the mechanisms of corporate companies are governed by these principles, practices, and regulations. So therefore, such practices would help bring efficiency into the business management business management and it will also help in inculcating good values within the overall organizational functioning and will also result in better work culture. Work culture is very important for any corporate company or any organization. So therefore, overall corporate governance will play a very crucial role in enhancing productivity and also work culture. And secondly, we need to understand the definition of moral integrity. Now, the moral integrity actually represents the commitment on the part of this corporate company. Okay, so what kind of a commitment? The commitment includes, the business processes and procedures should be conducted in a much more ethical manner. Okay, they should be conducted in a ethical manner, and they should also follow the values like honesty, and they should also preserve some of the moral values while conducting their transactions or operations. So this is what constitutes moral integrity of a corporate company. Now, moral integrity also will further enhance and enrich corporate governance, and it will help develop trust among the stakeholders about that particular corporate company. So, overall, this plays a very important role in developing trust. Now, we have defined both corporate governance and moral integrity. Now we will try to understand the third term, the third concept, that is professional efficiency. So what exactly the professional efficiency? It symbolizes the corporate company's competence and effectiveness. Okay, so it overall reflects the corporate company's competence and effectiveness. So therefore, it also involves the leadership's ability to carrying out the responsibilities which are already given to that particular person. Okay, now competency also results in better resource management. Existing resources will be used in a best possible manner, and it will also result in better decision making, smooth and swift decision making, and that is very important for the overall efficiency and effectiveness of any company. So therefore, the trinity of corporate governance, moral integrity and also professional efficiency play a very crucial role in the development of any corporate company. So we have understood the meanings of these three terms. Now we will proceed into the demand of the question. We will address the essence of the question. So we have to write a side heading, that moral integrity in the context of corporate governance. How moral integrity is essential and important for the corporate governance in India. So first and foremost thing, we need to understand that in India, so the corporate governance which upholds the value of moral integrity, corporate governance which upholds the value of moral integrity, it involves protecting whistleblowers. So I hope every one of you know who are whistleblowers. So whistleblowers are generally individuals who are part of the organization, and if they if they find out any unethical practice within the company, they immediately report such an unethical practices, because it is against the organizational values. It is also against the moral integrity of the organization. So therefore, the moral integrity of a corporate company also involves protection of whistleblowers. So if you look at India, India has also framed Protection of Whistleblowers Act 2014. In the year 2014, India has framed Protection of Whistleblowers Act. So therefore, the Companies Act 2013 also provides for legal protection to whistleblowers. So therefore, a company which have a moral integrity will also protect the whistleblowers, because when a company protect its whistleblowers, there's a possibility that they are honest individuals and they immediately report any such unethical practice or even illegal practice, and even they find out corruption within the organization. When they report such a corruption, it would be possible to take immediate action. We could take immediate action on such fraudulent practice. So therefore, a whistleblower protection is very important for overall efficiency of the company. So secondly, we need to talk about the rights of the shareholders. Right. So in any corporate company, there are different stakeholders as well as shareholders also. So now the protection of shareholders' interests or shareholders' rights forms the crux or at the root of overall moral integrity. Okay, it is at the root of overall corporate governance. So therefore, moral integrity will also plays a very significant role in protecting the shareholder rights. And in any corporate company, there are different members, okay, different board members and directors also. So one such director is independent directors. Okay, so there are independent directors also in the board of a corporate company. Now these independent directors very often act in an impartial manner. Okay, impartial manner. So when they are acting in an impartial manner, the conflict of interest does not impact the overall functioning of the company, right? So for any company, the independent board oversight is also very important. So if you look at an example, SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, requires that a certain percentage of board members be independent directors. So, what happens with the independent directors? They ensure impartiality in the functioning of the board. So, they take decisions based on the, you know, all the interest of all the stakeholders of a company. So therefore, the SEBI mandate of a certain percentage of board members be independent directors will ensure overall checks and balances in decision making. And even if a certain decision is taking that would not favor a particular individual or a certain sum of stakeholders, but it would be more inclusive, the decision would be more inclusive and it would benefit all the stakeholders. So over a period of time it improves the performance and the effectiveness and efficiency of the company. Okay, right. So next we have to understand the practices which are actually adopted by these corporate companies. So what sort of practices they are actually adopting, uh, those practices are really matters. For example, those companies which adopt sustainable and responsible business practices, right? So they uh, the corporate companies respect the norms corporate social responsibility norms of the government, and they also respect the rights of all the stakeholders as well as shareholders, and they go for responsible globalization. So responsible globalization means it is not just for making profits, not just for making profits, but it will also take into account the concerns related to environment and also social justice, and will also take measures for the better working conditions of employees. So therefore the sustainable practices the companies need to adopt, and moral integrity will play a very crucial role in developing such sustainable practices. And every corporate company should have a code of ethics and also code of conduct. For example, uh, a company which establishes code of ethics and code of conduct that guides individuals, that directs individuals to have to direct their conduct in a certain way. Okay, so overall this ensures values like honesty, transparency, and also ethical behavior, not just within the company but also among all the employees. So if we mention one such example, Securities and Exchange Board of India has already mandated that all the Indian companies should have a proper code of conduct. Okay, so a proper code of conduct should be in place so that it guides the behavior, and it guides the overall behavior of the company, board members, senior management officials, and it will lead to the ethical decision making. And ethical decision making is very important for any company, because we have already discussed why ethical decision making is very important, because through ethical decision making they will not work for the narrow benefits like just making profits and not taking care of the shareholders and also the society. Now we have discussed the first aspect of this, the first dimension of this answer. And when we talk about the second dimension, it is about the professional efficiency in the context of corporate governance in India. So why professional efficiency is very important for corporate governance in India? Now, see, with the professional efficiency, it actually results in a well-informed and timely decision making. Okay, well-informed and timely decision making. Now, those decisions without a delay and decisions which are very well informed, they are very important for the overall efficiency of any organization. Now, if you look at an example of Tata Group, so its swift response in 2008 global financial crisis has led to the uh, you know uh, the conglomerate or the overall Tata Group able to withstand the economic storm that was created because of the 2008 global financial crisis. So therefore, effective decision making ensures any company to come up with the professional efficiency in any company would results in effective decision making. Now after that, the professional efficiency will also result in better utilization of existing resources with any company, right? So some companies may have a minimal resources or negligible amount of resources, but the overall success of the company lies in efficient utilization of existing resources. Efficient utilization of existing resources. So, if a company is able to utilize those resources in a more efficient manner, that would result in overall success of the company. When we talk about an example under this, we can discuss Infosys. So Infosys actually invest heavy amounts of money on research and development. So when they are investing in research and development, there is a possibility that they could develop their technological capabilities over a period of time. So when they are able to develop, when they are investing in research and development and developing technological capabilities, overall it will results in a better functioning, a more efficiency of the company. So ultimately that would bring a common good, that will bring common good not just for the stakeholders and shareholders, even for the general public, because more and more technological innovations have been taking place. And the third point, in the corporate governance, with respect to professional efficiency, so the professional efficiency actually helps corporate companies in identifying and also assessing the problems, the risks involved in overall functioning of a private company or a corporate company. Now, this is also very important. Please pay attention to this. When a corporate company is able to understand or able to do this SWOT analysis, then it could invest or it could take early measures to reduce the threats and maximize the existing opportunities of such a company. For example, HDFC Bank, so it was able to maintain the financial stability despite the volatile financial sector. So why it was able to maintain the stability? Because of its robust risk management. So its robust risk management practices have enabled the HDFC Bank to maintain the stability. Okay, so this is how you have to give examples in each and every point. So that further enriches your overall content. Now, after that, the ethical conduct, the professional efficiency will also further enhance the ethical conduct of any organization. For example, you can give Aditya Birla Group. You can write about Aditya Birla Group. So this Aditya Birla Group has actually maintained a strong ethical framework. So even in its operations and its professional conduct. So because of its strong ethical framework, so it has resulted in overall professional efficiency of the corporate governance. And please understand both moral integrity and also professional efficiency of any corporate company will result in long-term growth and sustainability in its operations. So that is the essence of the overall success of any corporate company. And this is how you have to write this answer. And in the conclusion, you just have to stress on the significance of both moral integrity and also professional efficiency, and how they further enrich the corporate governance of any company, and how they results in overall efficiency and more productivity. Okay, so this is how you have to address this answer. So the next question is about international aid. See, aid has been very often criticized. So there are many reasons for criticism of international aid. So the reasons include international aid is very often used by the developed countries, used by developed countries to open up markets in the developing countries or least developed countries. Not just that, even in order to fulfill a certain goals of those narrow political goals of developed countries, aid is also being given. So because of these reasons, uh, international aid involves several ethical issues, and it is very important to address these ethical issues. So because when we are able to understand these ethical issues, we would be able to counter these narrow political agendas when it comes to the international aid, and we can channelize the international aid particularly for humanitarian purposes, and that is very important. We need to channelize the international aid for humanitarian objectives, and also developing capacities of the people, particularly in the backdrop of increasing climate change driven disasters. And these climate change driven disasters have been impacting the infrastructure in developing and least developed countries. So, therefore, in this context, the question has been asked: international aid is an accepted form of helping resource challenged nations. So don't confuse with the resource challenged nations term. So resource challenged nations are those nations which have limited resources, and limited resources they have also facing problems like excessive population, low levels of economic growth and economic development, high levels of poverty, illiteracy, malnutrition, and also the problem of internal securities. So, along with the disasters, these countries have also been facing several problems, the resource challenged nations. And in this context, the first statement says the international aid is an acceptable form of, you know, acceptable form of aid to a resource challenged nations. These are resource challenged nations. So in this context, we need to comment on the ethics which are involved in the contemporary international aid. And when we are writing our points and answers, we should also support our points with robust examples, and that is also forms the crux of the answer. Now, in the first part of the answer itself, you just have to define what exactly constitutes international aid. What exactly constitute international aid? Now, international aid can be defined as aid which is being provided by one country to another country. Okay, one country provides aid to another country, or any international organization can also provide aid to another country which has been facing various challenges. For example, World Food Program, World Food Program, providing food to countries like Afghanistan and also Yemen, because these countries have been facing humanitarian crisis. If we mention an example, we can mention about India, which has contributed around 96 crore financial aid to earthquake hit Nepal in the year 2050. For relief and rescue, India has provided around 96 crore rupees of international aid. So you can mention such an example after defining what exactly constitutes international aid. Now, so we have defined international aid and also given example. Now, this is how, in the next part of the answer, this is how you have to link international aid with the question, what has been asked in the question. So, ethics have been surrounded in the international aid. So because of there is an increasing importance for international aid. So why there's an increasing importance of international aid? So we have discussed, because these resource challenged countries have been facing several problems, several challenges. So in order to address those challenges, the developed countries or countries which are relatively well off have been coming up with international aid. So therefore, in this context, the international aid has assumed a lot of significance. So therefore, it is also important that ensuring aid is delivered and utilized ethically. So deliver aid ethically, and also utilization of aid in an ethical manner is very important. So for overall effectiveness of the international aid as a major form of aid to these resource challenged countries. Now we have introduced this question. Now after introducing this question, you just have to write the ethical foundations of international aid. So what exactly the ethical foundations? So what are the ethical values which are guiding the international aid? So first and foremost, we need to discuss about the humanitarian assistance. Now aid is primarily provided to address the humanitarian assistance or humanitarian issues. So we can write examples of Afghanistan, Yemen, and even Haiti. Countries like Haiti, which are very poor, and this countries recently become, we have seen this in news because people in Haiti have been eating the biscuits which are made of soil, raw soil. So in this context, the one such ethical foundation behind international aid is humanitarian assistance. So, altruism is one such factor. So, altruism is showing love and compassion towards other who have been facing certain problems, and you also feel happy whenever they come out of those problems. Now, altruism is actually a fundamental ethical foundation in all international aid related matters. For example, a particular country has been facing a worst, for example, Maldives had faced water crisis, drinking water crisis. So India had intervened and India had provided enormous amount of drinking water to Maldives on the altruistic grounds. So therefore, altruism is a fundamental ethical foundation in all international aid related matters. So it in fact emphasizes on selflessness on the part of the donor. donor of the international aid. So one such example is during 2004 devastating tsunami earthquake. The global response was immense and enormous. So several countries have come up with moral, material support and also financial support to those countries which are part of Indian Ocean, and they are also impacted by Indian Ocean tsunami 2004. So the next aspect would be the global solidarity. For example, a particular section of uh, world has been facing a problem. We can mention about recent COVID-19 pandemic. So how devastating the COVID-19 pandemic is. So because of this COVID-19 pandemic and the increasing levels of mortality and its spread, the entire world have come together. So in the form of establishment of COVAX. So the COVAX objective is to ensure equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, because this was primarily guided by the motto that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So because of this reason, the entire world have come together and they have established COVAX facility. And COVAX facility will ensure equitable access to vaccines to all the countries, whether rich or poor, whether they have adequate logistics, whether they are able to manufacture these vaccines or not. So, irrespective of all these factors, all countries have come together. So, this is the next logical foundation of international aid. Now, after that, we should also discuss about the developmental assistance. So, earlier we have discussed humanitarian assistance, where assistance is being provided on humanitarian grounds alone. Humanitarian grounds alone. So, on the other hand, we need to discuss about the developmental aid which is being given on the developmental aid. So, I will give you an example here. Now, countries like India have been enhancing the capacities and capabilities of people in Africa through several capacity building programs. So, Japan, India both collaborated in Africa Asia Growth Corridor. So, this is one such effort where countries have been giving developmental assistance. This is one such instance where countries are providing developmental assistance to resource challenged countries. Resource challenged countries. Now, firstly, when any country has been giving developmental aid or developmental assistance, the primary motive behind such a developmental assistance is capacity building. So the capacity building of receiver country is very important, so that those countries will get empowered, they become self-sufficient and resilient. So their economies will become resilient. So you can mention about the Africa Asia growth corridor where India and Japan have been collaborating. So you can also write about the Marshall Plan. See, the Marshall Plan is actually a plan that was initiated by US for the development of Europe post World War II. Okay, so this is particularly for the capacity building of entire European region. The Marshall Plan has been launched by USA. Now, the developmental assistance also include improving education, providing quality health care for the people who are living in the resource challenged or resource starved countries. So one such example is UNICEF. This is an international organization and that organization works for the education of children. And this UNICEF organization has been proactively engaging in providing quality education, ensuring access to better quality education for children across the globe. Now, you very often come across the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well. So, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been investing heavily in healthcare, education, agriculture, women empowerment, and gender equality related issues. So therefore, this is also a part of the international aid. However, we can call it philanthropic activities. Okay, philanthropic activities. So that is by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, not just Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but we can talk about Ajim Premji Wipro Foundation. So this has also a very an organization, a trust which has been improving the quality, which has been providing quality education for children who are otherwise out of school. And the international aid is also envisioned for ecological sustainability. See, because of growing concerns for climate change, rising sea levels, there is a huge need for developed countries and also developing countries to rapidly make a transition towards the renewable fuels. So in order to make transition towards the renewable fuels, they require technological assistance as well as financial assistance. Both technological assistance and financial assistance is being promised by the developed countries as part of the Paris deal under Green Climate Fund. So according to this Green Climate Fund, they have to provide 100 billion in financial assistance to these developing countries or resource starved countries. So over a period of time, this ensures the ecological sustainability as well. So you also come across the schemes like REDD plus of World Bank and REDD. So these programs also envision ecological sustainability through afforestation programs, so thereby reducing emissions through afforestation. So all these comes under the ecological sustainability of international aid. Now after that, we need to understand the ethical issues which are actually involved in this international aid. What ethical issues and ethical criticisms are involved? So first and foremost, we need to discuss about the conditional aid. Okay, the international organizations like World Bank or even developed countries have been providing aid. Developing countries have been providing aid. So, but those aid comes under certain obligations with respect to opening up the economy or favoring the businesses or investments from a particular country, or even coercing those countries which have been receiving the international aid to ink security pacts with these countries. So therefore, even nowadays, China has been following this approach through debt trap diplomacy, where it has been deliberately giving loans to the developing countries, underdeveloped countries, and resource starved countries. So, therefore, the political manipulation and conditional aid, which has been benefiting the narrow national interest of those countries which have been giving foreign aid or international aid. So, there's an example. The example is United States has been giving aid to the Central American countries. So the aid is not just for the genuine development of the Central American countries. Rather, USA has been giving aid to these countries, prioritizing or keeping in mind the political interest involved rather than welfare development of these countries. And secondly, there's a huge economic dependence also. For example, international aid is being given, and international aid has been indirectly related to economic interdependence among those countries. Because yes, we are giving aid to you, so therefore you have to accept or you have to open up your markets for us. You have to open economy for us. You have to allow more and more investment into your economy for us. So this coercive policies or coercive practices has been resulted in excessive economic dependencies between the donor country and the receiver country. So one such example is Haiti. So in Haiti, what happened was, so Haiti has been receiving a lot of foreign aid. So even after receiving such a foreign aid, still Haiti has not able to come out of this financial crisis. So it's still facing a huge amounts of hunger, poverty, and malnutrition. So there's no significant improvement in the conditions of people in Haiti, despite receiving such economic aid from foreign countries. And other major ethical issue in foreign aid is corruption. So corruption is one of the most crucial ethical problem. So when foreign aid is given to these resource starved countries, so very often the foreign aid has has either been diverted, or it is being, the political class has been taking over the aid. For example, if a particular country gives 100 crores to a poor country, so only 10 crores or 15 crores has been spent for the development of poor. So remaining money is being siphoned out by the political class. So therefore, corruption is also a major problem in international aid. So if you look at the example, Haiti's earthquake, Haiti has faced an earthquake in the year 2010. So after the earthquake, the international organizations and international community has come up with aid to Haiti. However, because of the corruption and also problems in the distribution of aid, has resulted or has made such relief measures largely ineffective. So therefore, it has faced a lot of criticism as well. So in this context, it is very important that aid reaches to the true beneficiaries. True beneficiaries. In fact, in these developing countries or resource starved countries, the governments are not very often accountable for the people. So when they are not accountable for the people, we cannot expect that the aid reaches to these people or true beneficiaries. And the last ethical issue is armed conflicts. So we very often see armed conflicts in third world countries, particularly Africa. So recently we have seen an armed conflict between the military and the paramilitary within Sudan. And this armed conflict has also misused the aid which is being given for the people who are deprived of such a conflict. So how this is misused? This aid is being misused to buy arms and ammunition, or this aid is being misused for the personal benefits. So therefore, at the international level, it is very important to ensure that the aid reaches to every beneficiary, and therefore such accountability mechanisms are very important. And aid should be given on humanitarian and on the developmental grounds. So humanitarian grounds and also developmental grounds, rather than imposing conditionalities on those countries, rather than pursuing narrow political agendas, narrow national interests. So this is where it is important. Uh, this is where we can address the ethical issues which are involved in international aid. So in this way, you can conclude this answer. So the next question, so which we need to talk about, is corruption. Please understand, corruption is very important topic when it comes to UPSC. So every year UPSC asks at least one case study and one theory part question from the case study section alone. So you have to understand the importance of corruption. You have to have a lot of examples for corruption so that you can write best possible answer for such questions. Now the question asks, corruption is a manifestation of the failure of core values in society. So every society is built on certain core values. So core values include, for example, honesty, integrity, truthfulness, compassion, empathy. So see, these are some of the core values. Based on these core values, every society is built. Okay, so because of a failure of these core values, okay, these core values have been failed. So because of the failure of these core values, that has resulted in corruption. Okay, corruption has resulted because of the failure of these core values. Now the question has been asking that, in your opinion, what measures have to be adopted to uplift these core values in the society, or what measures have to be adopted to uplift these core values. So we need to define what exactly corruption is. We need to define corruption is. So even we define corruption, and after defining corruption, you can mention the Transparency International, what India's ranking is in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. So because when you write such an index, it gives a good impact. Okay, it makes the introduction more and more impactful. So corruption is, you can simply define corruption as use of public office for private ends. So this is a very simplest form of corruption. So corruption involves use of public office for private ends. So after writing such a definition for corruption, so you can write the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. So what exactly is India's rank? Okay, so if you look at the Corruption Perception Index ranking, India has ranked 85 out of 180 countries in the Corruption Perception Index 2022. So it indicates the poor ranking of India in the corruption measure. So still prevalent corruption at different levels, whether it is at with the political elected politician, civil servant, a journalist, and administrator. So all levels corruption has been prevalent in India. So earlier I have told you there are certain values in each society. So because of the failure of such values, it has resulted in the form of corruption. So corruption has been emerged because of the failure of such values. So what we have to do? So what we need to do? First and foremost, we need to take certain measures so that these measures will help in uplifting the core values in society. So what are those measures? First and foremost, we need to reform our education system. See, education system is very important for a healthy socialization of child. Healthy socialization of any child. Now, healthy socialization would result in inculcating values among a child. So, when we are able to inculcate such values or negative perception about corruption, then the levels of corruption in future will drastically reduce, as we can observe this in Scandinavian countries. So in Scandinavian countries, what happens key, there's a huge, a rich social capital. So where people respect and love the community engagement or community networks. So therefore, at the young age, we need to inculcate such values among students. So we should also focus on inculcating critical thinking and empathy building exercises. So a critical thinking and empathy building would gradually make child a responsible citizen in the future. A responsible citizen in the future. And that is the essence of making India, a superpower. I would say a great nation. So there's an example. So in countries like Singapore, what generally happens is in the education system itself, in schools itself, they emphasize on character building of children. So such innovative methods and practices need to be practiced in India also. Now after that, the promotion of ethical leadership is also very important, because when we promote ethical leadership, that results in ethical decision making. Now, ethical decision making is very important because it results in common good. So it is good for everyone, society, the community, the people, and leader. So it is good for everyone. So that results in ethical decision making and greater accountability of the decision that has been taken by the leader. And for that, what we need to do is we need to support the mentorship and coaching programs. So, for example, there are programs like going online as leaders, going online as leaders. So that was started by Google in order to nurture people in the tribal areas to develop leadership skills. So there are certain organizations like Seva. So they have been promoting leadership skills among women so that women can readily participate in the politics. So they part of the politics. So therefore, promoting ethical leadership also plays a very important role. So if we give an example, the US Naval Academy has been focusing on developing moral character in future officers. Now, after that, we should also discuss about enhancing transparency and accountability of the individuals. So not just individuals but also civil servants, the politicians, and business individuals. So when we improve transparency and accountability, that curb corruption, that prevent corruption. So how can we do that? How can we further enhance transparency and accountability? So one such way, we can strengthen the anti-corruption laws and enforcement agencies. So enforcement agencies need to be given more and more powers. Central Vigilance Commission, Central Bureau of Investigation, Enforcement Directorate. So such agencies should be given more powers, and we need to strengthen the anti-corruption laws. For example, we have Prevention of Corruption Act. So certain shortcomings and drawbacks need to be, you know, uh, taken away so that we can further strengthen these anti-corruption laws. So we should also have a robust and strong whistleblower protection mechanisms and legislations in place. So this could act as a deterrent. This could also act as a deterrent on the part of individuals who have been who have been following corrupt practices. Okay, right. So if we mention example, we can mention about the Right to Information Act. So that was passed in the year 2005. So the Right to Information Act empowers citizens by giving them information. So overall, it results in increasing transparency in the political processes. Now, after that, we can also mention about the community engagement. Now, community engagement is also a very important. So when we engage a community in the political process, that also results in transparency and accountability. For example, if you understand the concept called social audit. So social audit is people's participation in the audit of the government processes and procedures. So this could also reduces corruption in the governance. And very often the concept of Gram Sabha is also very significant to reduce corruption. So it also indicates increased people's participation in the political process. People's participation in the political process. So therefore, community engagement plays a very crucial role in preventing corruption. So there's an example in Nigeria, integrity clubs have been established. Now, in this integrity clubs, youth take part. So youth actively engage in the integrity clubs. So this overall will help in furthering the anti-corruption practices or anti-corruption efforts. So the next point is we need to focus on media and also information dissemination. When information is increasingly available to all the stakeholders and individuals, that would also in a way reduces the secrecy in the administrative process. Now reducing the secrecy in the administrative process is actually the crux and very crucial for enhancing the transparency and accountability. And we should also encourage media to make journalism investigative journalism. Now investigative journalism will empower people with objective information, and also it will reduce corruption, even expose corruption at various levels, government, businesses. So the media has to be encouraged to practice investigative journalism. So there's an example, the investigative reporting by media outlets like Panama Papers. They have revealed high levels of corruption in politics and at businesses. So therefore, such investigative journalism is actually the need of the hour. And for any society, whistleblowers are they play a very crucial and very important role. In fact, Kautilya in his Arthasastra has also emphasized on whistleblowers. So they expose corruption in an organization, in an institution. So they are honest individuals and they want the organization to work as per the established principles and established concepts, and it should not deviate into an unethical path. So therefore, Kautilya rightly called for incentivizing these whistleblowers. In fact, the government of India had passed the Whistleblower Protection Act in the year 2014. So therefore, it will give protection to whistleblowers. However, protection is not just enough. We need to provide more and more incentives for these whistleblowers so that they can expose corruption, institutionalized corruption in certain organizations. And that also further increases the trust of the people in the overall governance process. And that is the essence of good governance. In fact, USA has passed a Whistleblower Protection Act. So, Whistleblower Protection Act. Now, this Whistleblower Protection Act safeguards employees in USA from misconduct. Okay, so for example, the retaliatory action cannot be taken up against the whistleblowers by an institution, the head of the institution, or the fellow employees. So, this is how we can further enhance the existing values in the society, so that prevent corruption. So overall, you need to emphasize on corruption-free India in the conclusion. So corruption-free India, in order to achieve the corruption-free India, so the code of conduct and code of ethics, along with enriching the existing social value systems, is very, very important. So this is how you can stress on the need to prevent corruption in the conclusion. Okay, so the next question is about the work environment. Okay, so in this question, we need to distinguish between the work environment, particularly work environment. What does coercion means? Coercion and undue influence. So, what exactly does this mean? Now, coercion is, so even if you don't like to do a particular work, so someone forced you to do that work. So you don't like to do this work, but someone else forced on you to do this work. So that is called as coercion. And second part is undue influence. So undue influence also involves that you don't like this work, or you may like or may not like this work, but someone else have been exerting the undue influence on you for the personal benefit of those individuals. So this undue influence would also result in excess pressure on you. Excess pressure on you. So both coercion and undue influence are detrimental. So they are detrimental to the overall work culture in any company. So they overall reduce the work efficiency and productivity of employees because it very often demotivate employees. So in this context, we need to just differentiate between coercion and undue influence, and we should also give some suitable examples. Now, in the workplace, so coercion generally involves. So we need to define what exactly is coercion and undue influence. So I have already told you what is coercion. Coercion is someone else is forcing you to do a particular work which you don't like. And on the other hand, undue influence. So when you are doing a particular work, either you may like or may not like, but undue influence has been imposed on you. So therefore, it builds excess pressure on you to do that particular work. So therefore, both coercion and undue influence, they manipulate trust. Okay, so the trust the employee had over the employer or the boss superior, so it manipulate the trust, and it would be detrimental to the organization's function and overall efficiency. So this will very often lead to unfair control in the decision making. Okay, so there will be unfair control in the decision making. And in several such cases, these behaviors will very often result in abusive management, eroding trust, hindering communication, and also fostering an unhealthy work environment or work culture. So there's an example also given. So the example is, so if a supervisor is coercing an employee for overtime work, so which is unpaid. So even he is using undue influence. Undue influence means, so you have to face the repercussions if you don't do this particular work. So that is undue influence. So that undue influence will also be used by the superior for his personal benefit. So this very often results in unhealthy work environment. So unhealthy work environment is detrimental for the overall functioning of the company. We need to understand the differences between coercion and undue influence within the work environment. Firstly, we can define this, what is coercion and what is undue influence. So we already defined what exactly coercion is. Coercion is the act of forcing someone. Okay, so on the other hand, undue influence includes an act of manipulating someone or exploiting one's own position power. So that is in that way we can use our influence. So that is not permissible, that is not allowed by the law. So if you look at the characteristics of coercion, so it very often involves overt threats and a very clear display of power imbalance between employees or superiors. On the other hand, the undue influence is more subtle. So it also involves the psychological manipulation and misuse of power and authority of a particular individual. So on the other hand, when it comes to the aspect of uh, legal side, it is covered under laws. So protecting employees. So for example, if an employee is forced, if an employee is coerced, then that would be protected under laws. So even if we have laws like prevention of sexual harassment, of women at workplace, the POSH Act, Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, 2013. So on the other hand, the undue influence not often illegal, but it's still considered as a part of workplace ethics and laws regarding the abuse of power, because it clear abuse of power when someone is using his or her position to further their personal benefits. It is a clear abuse of power on the part of that particular individual. And next, manifestation is the next aspect. So of course the coercion also involves aspects like bullying, harassment, or violence of in the workplace alone. And the undue influence involves a clear manipulation. Okay, so it involves persuasion, either positive or negative, and even the exploitation of existing power dynamics. So there's an hierarchy in any organization or any institutions. So in an hierarchy, so there is a power dynamics. So those power dynamics are exploited. So after that, we should also talk about the impact of the coercion on that particular individual and also the work culture. So it impacts the mental well-being of employees. So if we coerce, if we force them to do that particular work, so it will result in loss of mental well-being. On the other hand, it will also create a hostile work environment, and that will lead to impacting the work culture of an organization. Okay, so this can lead to a stressful work environment with employees feeling pressured and manipulated. So because of this undue influence. So ethical considerations so these ethical considerations, they also raise serious ethical concerns because it involves violation of individual autonomy and consent. However, the undue influence is ethically questionable, so because it very often undermines the autonomy of the individuals, because we are used someone else is using undue influence on that employee, so that it is very often questions or undermines the autonomy of individuals through manipulation. So this is how you have to differentiate between coercion and undue influence. So however, when it comes to conclusion, whenever you are writing conclusion, you have to emphasize on work culture. You have to emphasize on robust work culture in an organization. So robust work culture is free from coercion, and it is also free from undue influence. So even there are companies like Tesla, Google, so they provide a healthy work environment for the employees. So that's how the productivity of an organization can be improved, because it motivates the employees to do good work. Okay, so therefore you have to finally emphasize on a ethical work culture in an organization. Okay, so this is all for today's lecture, and tomorrow we will discuss few more questions. Okay, so thank you.